Can you see it on the thing yet?
Mm-hmm.
Where?
On my laptop. If you refresh the page.
How do you do that?
Just...
Yep. I'm going to start in 2 minutes. To anybody that's out there, it's weird with the delay. Oh, thank you for that thumbs up. All one of you. So we're starting in about 1 minute at 7 o'clock. We've got 4 of you already. It's nice to see the thumbs appearing. I can see a few names. Oh, Gillian and Daryl. Hello, Daryl. Haven't seen Daryl for a few days. He's a trianologer. Right, a few seconds and we'll make a start. It's really strange because I'm watching this on 2 screens and that one's like way behind that one. Don't look at the numbers. Okay, I won't. Sorry, Gillian. It's me getting a telling off. Not even started. Right, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to make a start if that's okay with you. My name is Gavin Oates. I am the managing director of a company called Tree of Knowledge, a motivational and engagement training organisation based in Fife. Now, I am very aware that it's not often you hear the words motivational and Fife in the same sentence, but it works for us. Been there for a number of years. I'm just spotting Lynette on here. I went to uni with Lynette. Hi, Lynette. We've been based here for a number of years. We travel all over the UK, into parts of Europe, sometimes further afield, working with all sorts of weird and wonderful organisations, and of course, the vast majority of the work we do is in schools. Now, just to tell you a little bit about me, so I'm not a complete stranger to everybody this evening. I'm 38 years old. I live in Edinburgh, not from Edinburgh originally. I'm from the west coast of Scotland, a wee town in Ayrshire called Troon. I have no idea if any of you will ever have been to Troon, but of course Troon is very famous for its golf courses, its beaches, and its 37 retirement homes. Rock and roll. So I left Troon just before I turned, or about when I turned 18, and I went to Northern College of Education in Aberdeen. And I know they've got a few Northern Collegers watching on here this evening, so a big hello to Lynette, Nicola and Lynn and a few others. Northern College of Education doesn't exist anymore. It got flattened the year I graduated, not because of anything I did, I might add, but Northern College was a teacher training facility where I spent 4 years training to become a primary school teacher. I learned very quickly that I didn't want to be a primary school teacher, but then I learned very quickly that small children do in fact freak me out. They stink, and I hate them. So let's move on. There's one or two of you will be a little bit concerned. I don't actually hate small children. I have my own children, which maybe concerns you more. I have 2 kids of my own. My son is 10. He only turned 10 on Saturday. I'm feeling very grown up. His name is Kian. I found out about 6 years ago that that's the same name as one of the guys out of Westlife. Devastated. And I have a daughter who's 6, and her name's Megatron. It's not really, but that would have been the coolest name ever. Her name is Ellis. So yeah, feeling very grown up at the moment. In fact, so grown up, I am soon to look for a second garden shed. So that's how cool I am. It's just to put my children in. That's a lie. So yeah, primary school teaching is my background. And I'm going to go as far to say that I think primary school teaching is one of the greatest jobs in the world ever. It just is. You find yourself working in some of the most rewarding environments you could ever imagine yourself working in, and you find yourself surrounded by some of the most creative brains you could ever imagine yourself to be surrounded by, and that's both the staff and the pupils, of course. Always inspired by how young people embrace challenging situations and embrace change and find the most wonderfully creative solutions to all sorts of problems out there. So I think, like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed being a primary school teacher, and I was a primary school teacher for about 6 years. However, there were things put me off. I always remember my first ever placement away up in one of the most northern parts of Aberdeenshire, not too far from the kind of turf area, I guess. And I was arriving at the school on my first ever placement to be met by my new boss, the head teacher, who was standing out front welcoming everybody to their place of work, which I thought was lovely. I liked the idea of a head teacher standing out at the front of the school every morning, welcoming everyone in. And the head teacher stopped me quite abruptly. The first thing I thought when I saw her was scary wee woman. But she stopped me, she put a hand on my chest, which I thought was very odd. She stopped me quite abruptly, so naturally I put my hands, not really, that would have been very, very wrong. But she stopped me quite abruptly, and she said, "Are you our student, son?" And of course, being called son on your first day of work, it makes you feel really grown up. And I said to her, "Yes, that's me, lady." And she looked me up and down and she said, "Male?" And I thought, do I need to prove this in some way? This is very uncomfortable. And I said, "Yes, I'm male." And she said, "Right, don't you forget your first rule of teaching." And I thought, brilliant, that's what I'm here for. 4 years of learning, go for it. First big rule of teaching. And she looked at me very seriously and said, "Don't smile till Christmas." Now, I'm not sure if you've heard this piece of advice before, but I've heard it many times within education, but I had never heard it at that point. Don't smile till Christmas. And I stood there thinking, well, that has to be a joke, because surely you would never, ever tell someone in any job to not smile till Christmas. It was September, for goodness sake. And I thought, if she's serious, well, then that means I have to stamp my authority early and not allow those young learners to see that approachable side, or allow my colleagues to see that approachable side, or the wider community that approachable side. So I thought, right, she's joking. This can't be real. So there's a punchline coming. So I'm preparing for a punchline. I'm waiting for that punchline. I don't know if you know what you do with your face when you're waiting on a punchline. You kind of do this, which is very odd when you then discover there is no punchline, because it just looks like you're eyeing up your new boss. So she just turned and walked away, and I realised she wasn't joking. This was very serious. I wasn't to smile. That was her recommendation. And as she was walking away, she just shouted back over her shoulder, "Staff room, son, second door on the right." Now, I got a little bit excited at this point because I'd never been in a staff room before. I don't know about any of you when you were in school, but when I was a kid, all through school, you weren't allowed in the staff room. In fact, I'm old enough to remember what it was like walking past the staff room and you could see the cigarette smoke coming out underneath the door. Can you imagine that now? And I got into the staff room, and like many staff rooms, there was that rectangle of chairs. There was a table in the middle. There was that newsletter that's been there for 42 years. There was biscuits, and there was biscuits, and then there was biscuits, and then there was biscuits and biscuits and biscuits, and then a few more biscuits. There was the kitchen area, and there was the old pigeonholes running down one side. And I went in and I sat down, and I felt like I had made it. I always wanted to be a primary school teacher, and I'd got through all the interviews and my exams at school, and I was sitting there feeling like I had made it. And there was a lady came up to me and said, "Excuse me, son, you're sitting in Anne's chair." And I'd heard that in some workplaces, particularly schools, some people like to sit in the same chair in the staff room every single day, because that's not weird at all. And I moved, and somebody came up to me and said, "Go and get yourself a tea or a coffee, son." Now, I have a caffeine allergy, which I know in the world of education is unheard of, but I can't drink tea or coffee. Well, I can, but I shouldn't. But I was 18, straight out of school, and somebody told me to make a coffee, so I went and made the coffee, and I'm standing stirring it thinking, I'm going to die. I haven't even made it into the classroom yet, and somebody's going to have to phone my mother. But I was rescued by yet another woman who approached me and said, "Excuse me, son, you're using Anne's mug. Now, I never actually met Anne, and I hate Anne. Anne caused me an awful lot of grief that morning. Never actually met Anne. Anne was always off with stress. Too many people using her mug. But it was at this point I had a moment where I didn't really know where to sit in the school staff room. I didn't really know what to drink from. I didn't really want to talk to anyone because they just kept telling me what I couldn't do. So I did what I do in that situation, and I stood and I people watched. So this is a Monday morning in a primary school in Scotland. The job I've always dreamt about doing. And I was standing in the kitchen area watching people coming and going on that Monday morning, and I started to tune in to the conversations, and I started to pick up a very interesting vibe in the room. There was a really interesting sort of energy in the staff room that morning, and the only way I can describe it is grumpy. It just felt really grumpy. That was the best word I had to describe it at the time. And I kind of stood there thinking, have I made the wrong decision here? And I actually started to doubt my entire choice of career based entirely on other people's mindset, other people's attitudes, other people's behaviours. And I actually started to think, do you know, why would any workplace feel grumpy on a Monday morning? You've just had 2 days off. Surely you came for this job. Surely you took this job. Surely you signed a contract. Surely you take the money every month. So surely we turn up on a Monday morning buzzing, absolutely raring to go to do the thing that we've chosen to spend potentially a third of our lives doing. And I actually started to think about leaving. And I don't know if any of you have ever been in that situation when you're 10 minutes in the door of a new job and you think you've made a mistake. And I turned to the door and I was thinking about going when all of a sudden the entire mood in the room just lifted. The entire energy in the room just switched with the introduction of one member of the team. Now, this lady that came into the room, she wasn't in any official leadership role. She wasn't the head teacher. She wasn't the deputy or the classroom teacher. She was a classroom assistant. For me, one of the most valuable people in the team. And this lady just kind of floated in like Mary Poppins. Practically perfect in every way. It was like she had rays of light coming out her face. She just lit the room up. And I remember standing there thinking, who are you? You've not even opened your mouth. She's one of them. If you think about it, you'll know these people. They can walk into a room and change the entire mood, the entire energy of a room, and they don't even have to open their mouth. Just think about that. That's extraordinary. And I remember thinking, wow, how have you built up these relationships that you can float in and make a difference? I want to be you. I want to be Mary Poppins. I had never had that thought before. Newly turned 18 years of age, and my biggest challenge was, how do you channel your inner Mary? And I'll tell you what it did. It threw me back to when I was in school, and it made me think about all the types of teachers that I had when I was in school. And the ones that made a difference. So I want you to do this for me. So those of you that are sitting watching this tonight, and listen, thank you so much for tuning in to watch. This is Tree of Knowledge's first ever live Twinkl session, and this is our wee sort of introduction to our fun at work stuff that we do. So I want you to think back to when you were in school. Primary, secondary, both, doesn't matter. And I want you to think about as many teachers as you possibly can. Just as many faces and names as you can. And I'm pretty certain that there'll be two types of teachers pop into your mind straight away. There'll be two types. There'll be your Mary Poppins and there'll be your Mr. Banks. Now let's think about these two. Let's think about the Mary Poppins first. That's those men and those women who are they're a joy. They're an absolute joy. They listened to you, they valued you, they got you, they helped you, they supported you, they guided you, they taught you great stuff. They're magic. They have impact, lifelong, lasting impact. And then you have your Mr. Banks, and that's those women and those men who, let's just be blunt about it, are an absolute disgrace and shouldn't be allowed in the classroom in the first place. Bored, miserable, angry, negative, unhappy people. They also have impact. Lifelong, lasting impact. Now, I always remember a piece of advice that I got when I started teaching. It's a very, very well-known saying, and that is, no matter what you do in life, most people will not remember what you do or what you say, but they will remember exactly how you made them feel. And it got me thinking about all the teachers in between those two extremes. So you've got your Mary Poppins and you've got your Mr. Banks, and then there's all the ones in the middle that you can't remember right now. And I'd like to tell you why you can't remember them. Because they're not memorable. I asked my 17-year-old nephew recently to describe those teachers and give me a good descriptive word for those teachers that sit somewhere in the middle, and his response, meh. It's a great word, isn't it? Meh. And I said to him, is that a real word? And he said, aye, M-E-H, meh. I'm saying to him, do you have to do that with your hands every time you say it? And he went, aye, meh. So all of a sudden, this character turned and started coming towards me, and I got really nervous. And she said, are you Gavin? And I looked at her and said, yes. Are you Mary? I didn't say that. But she was the first person to address me by name, first person to ask me who I was and show any interest in me whatsoever. And she said, you're with me this morning, Gavin, in the nursery. Let's go and play. Let's. And off we floated down the corridor together to the nursery. And I started getting a little bit nervous again, because I'm thinking, nursery, that's just a big room full of 3 and 4-year-olds running and eating. And I was thinking, right, Gavin, what were you like when you were 3 and 4? Because I was very different from all the other 3 and 4-year-olds. I was 11. And I started, that's my favourite joke, and I started to think about what sort of things were in nursery when I was a kid. Now, I don't know about you, but in my nursery there was a sandpit, there was a slide, there was a reading corner, there was a dress-up area, there was the house corner, there was the snack area, favourite area, and then we arrived in the nursery and it felt very familiar. The first thing I saw was the sandpit, then I saw the reading corner, and I saw my favourite book of all time. You may know it, it's called The Very Hungry Caterpillar. If you don't know it, then there's something wrong. And I thought to myself, do you know what, Gavin? It's day one of being a primary school teacher. I think you're going to be all right. I was nervous, but I thought I'm going to be all right. And I'll be honest with you, I had an absolute ball. I played, and I played, and I played. And then the kids arrived at 9, and we continued to play right up until 20 to 11 when we had to stop and go outside because it was now playtime, officially playtime. Kids are dragging me out the side door saying, come into the new climbing frame, and the staff are saying, come to the staff room and meet your new colleagues. And I'm thinking, but there's a climbing frame. But I went to the staff room, didn't sit down because I was worried that Anne had returned. And then I found out, no, Anne doesn't return. Well, certainly not until her pay gets cut. Controversial. I'll move on quickly. We've all got one. You could mark it on a calendar. It's just rude. And I finally sat down, and I did what I do in that scenario. Again, I people watch. I listen. I take it all in. And what I discovered in that particular school, which will remain completely nameless, in that particular school, on that particular day, I was very much surrounded by a group of individuals who spent their break bitching and moaning about their jobs. Bitching and moaning about each other, the kids' families, the boss, her team, the government. Too many systems and processes, not enough systems and processes. Make your mind up, can't have both. And the list just went on. And the only thing I could think of as I was looking at all these grown-ups in the room was quite simply, why are you here? Why are you actually here? Why do you get out your bed every morning to come and do what it is that you do? when it appears to make you think like this, act like this, behave like this. And then the question turned on me, and that was, well, why are you here, Gavin? Why have you chosen primary school teaching? I choose primary school teaching for the same reason why I choose to run the business that I now run. It's to make a difference. For me, there's no reason to do any job in life other than to make a difference. In fact, there was an extraordinary piece of research from one of the big unis down in London, done a few years ago now, into purpose. Now, when they talk about purpose, they're not talking, of course, about to pay the bills and to get by. They're talking about that much, much deeper thing. The real why behind you doing what you do. The Japanese call it your ikigai. It's your reason for being. It's your reason for getting out of bed every single morning. And what they proved was that for any individual in any job, no matter what they do, if they don't actually believe that what they're doing on a daily basis is making a difference to other people's lives, it's then not possible for that individual to experience true happiness in their jobs. Now, whether you agree with that or not, it's none of my business, but to give an insight to our business at Tree of Knowledge, we eat, sleep and breathe that way of thinking. And I sat there on my first ever day of primary school teaching thinking, am I going to stick this out for the rest of my life? And the honest answer was, I have no idea. At which point, 4 years flew past, and in 2001, I graduated with an honours degree in primary school teaching, and I went on to teach for 2 years, and at the end of that 2 years, I got an opportunity to go on a workshop. And I didn't really want to go on the workshop. I don't know if you've ever had that moment where you just don't want to go. You've got better things to do with your time. That's a phrase that we hear a lot, and I had become one of them. I had better things to be doing with my time. Of course, sometimes there's no better way to spend your time than to work on your own personal development. But this workshop was called Putting the Fun Back in the Staff Room. And it was amazing. It was absolutely incredible. It made me laugh. It made me think. It made me feel. And it challenged my mindset and my attitude and my learning in a way that was almost uncomfortable. But I mean that in a good way. And right at the end, the guy that was running it stood there and said, see if you hate your job. And I thought, I don't hate my job. I love my job. Anyway, he said, see if you hate your job, I've got some groundbreaking advice for you. Leave. Go away. Let everybody else here get on with what they love to do. Get a smile back in your face and go find something that makes you happy. And I distinctly remember sitting there thinking, she should leave. And Moni Chops over there, she ruins my day every day. Imagine being a kid in her class. Anyway, I stopped myself. You might have seen have you ever seen the scene from Still Game when all their mates are at the bar and they're sitting there going, good guy, good guy. I won't finish the sentence. And I started picking people off and I stopped myself and I was like, Gavin, this is not what this is about. It's not about them. It's about you. It's about how you choose to think, how you choose to act, how you choose to behave, how you choose to have impact. It's easy to look at those other ones, and you know who they are in your schools. It's easy to look at them and think, you're not doing this and you're not doing that. But we have to think about ourselves. We have to look at ourselves and how we contribute to the culture and the working environment of our schools. Because you know if you're bringing it or not. You just know if you're bringing the right stuff to work or not. It's whether we do something about it or not. So anyway, I quit my job that day and I went to work for that gentleman that was running that workshop that day, and we created a whole bunch of workshops all around things like mindset, motivation, fun, creativity and humour in the classroom. All the things that can sometimes be overlooked. And then we started developing more for teachers and parents. And then 9 years ago, along with two great colleagues and friends of mine, we led a management buyout in that company, and we started again. And it was at that point we sat round a table and we asked ourselves a really important question. And it's a question that I want you to ask yourself as you're listening and watching this tonight with regards to your job. And the question is, why are you here? Why do you actually do what you do? Why does this even exist? When you sit there and work and you look around, you're, why is it happening? And for us at Tree of Knowledge, it's to inspire the world. Why would it not be? Now, whether that's our wee world in the room on the day when we're delivering workshops to kids, to teachers, to some of the biggest companies in the world, like Nike, for example, or whether we're trying to inspire literally the entire world, which is absolutely the vision of our organisation. But at the heart and soul of everything we do, we work with kids. And we work with kids in primary schools, secondary schools, and we learn probably more from working with children than we do from working with adults. I mentioned at the start this evening how inspiring it is to work with young people and how important it is to embrace what we learn from those young people, because actually sometimes they have a way of doing things that's mind-blowing and, again, inspiring. So, with that in mind, I'd like to set you a wee task or a wee challenge, if that's okay. It'll just take a few seconds. So, I have no idea how many people are watching this. My thing tells me there's 20, but I know that it chops and changes and I've not to trust that. But I'd like you to put your hands like this for me. And I would like to put one thumb up and one pinky. And all I want you to do is this. That's all I need you to do. So that's your task. So if you can try that for me as you do this, I want you to be thinking about how that feels. Okay? So I'm going to guess that some of you got to this point and got no further. I'm going to guess that some of you did this. You were kind of willing it to happen. And I'm going to guess some of you got to this point and your tongue came out, because that's how we concentrate as adults, and then you thought, I'll do this, nobody can see me, so yeah, I've got it right. So try once more for me. That's what I need you to do. It takes practice. Now, I'm going to assume that for many of us it feels quite unnatural. Good. I want some of the things I say tonight in here to feel a little bit unnatural. I want to challenge you. I want you to try and think about you in a way that maybe we don't spend enough time doing, and how you are impacting in your place of work, not just on the pupils, but on the staff as well, and then the wider community. So we're going to have a little look at the work of a Hungarian psychologist called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Now, I can't write that up for you because it looks back to front. But Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, his most famous book is called Flow. And he's an expert in looking at all the different challenges that we're faced with on a daily basis, and how we as individuals choose to deal with those challenges, or in some cases choose not to deal with those challenges. Now, before I go any further, I have a slight issue with the word challenges. I'm old enough now to remember what it was like in the workplace when people said to us, oh, we've got a bit of a challenge, and it was really exciting. But 20 years ago, somebody had a beautiful idea to stop using the word problems and replace it with the word challenges. And let's be honest, it is a beautiful idea. I get the thinking behind it. It's a nice change of word because it's softer. But now we're 20 years down the line and somebody says to us, we've got a bit of a challenge, we just assume there's a problem. So it maybe didn't, for some of us, have the long-lasting impact. Anyway, I want you to think about all the challenges you're faced with in education, in your role, in your school, in your classroom, whatever it is that your specific role is. You might be a student teacher watching this. I want you to think about all the challenges you're faced with. The high-level challenges, whether that's change, whether it's systems and processes, whether it's people. Again, it doesn't really matter what it is, but if you imagine that's that high level of challenge, and we've got low challenge down here, but high challenge. What happens if we're faced with a huge amount of challenge and we don't feel, or we don't have the skills necessary to tackle them? Now, when I say skills, that's the hard skills and the soft skills. So what happens if we're faced with a huge amount of challenge and we don't have the skills to deal with it, but we also don't have the right mindset? We also don't have the right attitude. We don't have enough passion and energy for it. Well, unfortunately, at that point, some of us are going to start to experience some level of stress and or anxiety. Now, I'm not going to try and guess the challenges that we all face on a daily basis in education, because I think we're all very aware of what those challenges are. My question is to all of you watching this evening, do you believe that you have the skills? Do you have the knowledge? Do you have the mindset? Do you have the attitude? Do you care enough? Have you got the passion to get out your bed every day, spring into that school and smash it out the park? and make the difference that you set out to make when you first went into teaching. Now, I don't know what the answer to that is. What I do know, though, is that stress and anxiety are playing far too big a role in education on a daily basis. Stress, of course, is the number one cause of long-term absence. But there are different types of stress. So, out of interest, I wonder how many of you would agree with me that there is such a thing as good stress. Now, I know, as I'm speaking to you, there's a delay, but I'll see them appear. So if you all click the wee emoji, a wee thumb up to let me know, I'll see it in a wee while, but you click it if you agree with me that there is such a thing as good stress. Now, there is such a thing as good stress. There's a scientific term for it. It's called a natural improvisational quality. In other words, when we're under pressure and experiencing stress, somehow some of us produce a greater performance. I remember my final ever teaching placement, and some of you might be able to tell me otherwise, but what they do nowadays rather, but when I did my final ever placement, the tutor didn't tell you when they were coming out. So you had to be on it at all times. And I remember I was about to teach a volleyball lesson. It's not exactly my best thing to teach, but so a volleyball lesson, and in she came, my tutor, with a big red file, and she said to me, just pretend I'm not here. Yeah, good one, thanks. And my heart was here, my heart was racing, I felt sick, it was awful. But by the end of that lesson, those kids, they'd have won the Olympics. That's how good that lesson was. It's extraordinary how, for some of us, when we're under pressure or we're experiencing stress, somehow we're able to produce that greater performance. Now, stress itself is not bad for us. How we choose to respond to stress is where it can go wrong. But more excitingly, it's where it can go right. Stress can inspire us, it can energise us, it can lift us, it can scare us. It can scare us into taking positive action and making positive decisions. So there is such a thing as good stress, but there's another side to stress which we at Tree of Knowledge we call silly stress. So what do we mean by silly stress? Being stuck in traffic. There's one. Now, there's people out there who get stuck in traffic every single day, and they get stuck at the same time on the same road, and they will sit there thinking things like, I bet this happens to me tomorrow. Well, of course it will. You know it's going to happen. And then tomorrow comes round and you sit there thinking, I knew it. I knew this was going to happen. And we get frustrated, and we get irritated, and we get annoyed. I love being stuck in traffic. Anything up to about an hour, I'm in my element. 2 young kids at home and a business to run. I love that time out. Fire on a CD, change the radio station, might even shut my eyes. Okay, maybe not that last one, that's dangerous. But next time you're stuck in traffic, I want you to do something for me. I want you to look at the faces of the people in the cars around you and watch for that moment. The moment they snap. Look at their face. And you'll notice that they're swearing and that they're on the phone. In fact, I read a thing recently that said nowadays when we get stuck in traffic and we get angry, we make phone calls because it's a way to vent, it's a way to get it out there. And of course you all know that your loved ones and colleagues are waiting by a phone, hoping that you're about to call with your life-changing news that you've not moved for 11 minutes. My thinking is, put your phone down, shut your face, and enjoy it for the fact that for the next few minutes you get to do nothing. It's wonderful. There's loads of moments like this. Putting fuel in your car is stressful for some of us. Have you ever done that thing where you put in £20 worth of fuel and 1 pence? What is it that some of you do? You top it up. Sometimes by £9.99. Sometimes it's £4.99. Some of it's it's 99 pence. Or if you're like me, you couldn't care less and you just crack on with your day. Now, I saw a woman doing this at the petrol station a while ago, and she was going for £30, and I knew she was going for £30 because she'd stopped at £29.95 for a break. She was preparing for the final push. I even saw her doing this, and off she went. £29.95, £29.96, £29.97. Her control at this point was excellent, like ninja level. £29.98, £29.99. I can feel the excitement through my phone. £30 and 4 pence. Now, her response was the bit that got me. It was this. Oh my God! And I'm thinking, right, firstly, what is this? Secondly, what's going on with your mouth? And then what's going on with your forehead? In fact, what's going on with my forehead? Look at that. And slightly random. But she was so angry. I didn't know how to laugh or be scared, so I carried on putting in my fuel, which I should probably have clarified. I wasn't just hanging around petrol stations. I was putting fuel in my car, happened to turn round, and she was now going for £40. And she missed it. That was the highlight of my day. And for anybody that's concerned about her, she got £50, and she was delighted. She was absolutely over the moon. And when she finally got back to her car and off she drove, I'm convinced I saw her nodding at the fuel pump as if to say, got you, you're not going to ruin my day, 4 pence. And off she drove. Now I sat there thinking, right, firstly, you've just spent £20 more than you needed to spend. And you've just spent 3 minutes of your day actually really angry. Now you could argue with me now and say, but it's just a silly 3 minutes. That's our point entirely. It's a ridiculously silly 3 minutes. And she might be one of them. And by them, you know who them are. It's them who have several of those 3 minutes in their day. They have some 5-10 minute moments, some 20-25 minute moments, some half-hour moments in their day where they're frustrated, irritated, stressed, angry about something or some things that just don't matter. Now, there's one more example I want to share with you that some of you have probably heard me speak about before many times all over the country. Toilet roll. It's the best example of silly stress. I want you to think about your toilet roll holder. If you don't have a toilet roll holder, imagine you have a toilet roll holder and stop putting your bog roll on the radiator. But it keeps it warm. Weird. Now, I want you to think about your toilet roll holder for me, and I want you to imagine that cardboard tube. Just a cardboard tube. Now, already some of you will be frustrated because in your mind you're thinking they should have changed it. Well, actually, I'll reword that. He should have changed that. Might as well be honest. And I want you to imagine that you're now changing it. So you've changed the toilet roll. Think for me, does your toilet roll hang over and away from the wall? Or does it hang in towards the wall? I would say hands up for over and away, but I can't see. But it's interesting because sometimes when I ask this to my audiences, their hands shoot up as if to say, and there's no other way. But of course there is another way. Like our jobs, there's tons of other ways. You might not like it, you might not be used to it, it might be different, it might be unusual, but there's other ways. In fact, put this to the test for me. From this day forward, everywhere you go in life, I want you to start turning toilet roll around. Do it in your own house, if you can cope. Do it in other people's houses. Do it at work. If you can't do it because of the big plastic contraption, elbow drop, comes off, turn it, put it on. They don't do elbow prints, I'll never know. And you do it in restaurants, hotels, and one day somebody's going to come up to you and say to you, is it you? And that's a great question because you can sit there and think, is it me? Or you can say to them, is it me what? And then they have to say it like it's a real thing. Is it you that keeps turning my flaming toilet roll around? And you'll think back to this moment and you'll realise I'm absolutely right. There are far too many things in life that should never, ever be stressful, but we are allowing them to be. We're not just allowing them to be, we're choosing them to be. And I'm going to throw the world of education into that quandary, if that's the right word. We're allowing too much to get under our skin and bug us in our jobs. Now there's 3 very silly things that don't affect your job. Being stuck in traffic for just a few minutes, spilling your fuel by just a few pence, or which way your toilet roll faces. If that's the things that can bug us in real life, then how many things are there that bug us in our jobs? I'll answer for some of you. Hundreds of things. Oh, I think I've just cut off. Nope, we're back on. Sorry, if you lost me there, my apologies. There's hundreds of things that will irritate us and stress us and frustrate us in our jobs. Every workplace is full of nonsense. Every workplace is full to the absolute brim with nonsense. Do you know that I reckon 99.9% of all nonsense in the workplace is created by the people that work there. I reckon the biggest problem we have in our workplaces is the people that work there. And yet, the biggest asset we have in our workplaces is the people that work there. So, what those truly high-performing schools have, those truly high-performing teams within any organisation have, of course, is those incredible individuals like you who are able to cut through all the crap, all the rubbish, all the nonsense and get back to why. Get back to to the core purpose as to why we're even here in the first place in this workplace, and why this building was built, and why these people come here to do what they do every day. And see, when we get everybody realigned back on that page, it's extraordinary what starts to happen. It's extraordinary the energy that starts to lift within your workplaces. And then of course there's another side to stress, which is very real, and when it gets you, it gets you, and it can have a hugely negative impact, not just on that individual but the people around them, that whether that's their loved ones at home or their colleagues at work. And I've been there at quite a young age in my career, and I choose to never feel like that again, because it hurts, and I don't ever want to feel like that again. I don't think any job is ever worth your happiness and your well-being. So I choose not to be stressed over certain things ever again. So if you're faced with a huge amount of challenge, whatever that might be, and we don't have the right mindset or we don't have the skills, the chances are we will experience some form of stress. But what Csikszentmihalyi's research goes on to say is that if you're not being challenged, so you've got that low level of challenge now, and we still don't have the skills or the mindset to deal with it properly, then unfortunately we start to switch off. We start to become apathetic. Have you ever worked with somebody that doesn't care? Like literally doesn't care. They don't care about you, they don't care about the kids, they don't care about the team, they just don't care. My good friend Dr. Andy Cope, who I have co-authored my first ever book called Shine with, available right now to order. I know that's back to front. He's got a great name for them, mood hoovers. You'll know who they are. Mood hoovers. They're often late or they don't turn up at all, and when they get a runny nose they take a week off because they spotted their opportunity to care less this week than they did last week. And when they do turn up, they just go through the motions, not the emotions. And I'm pretty certain most of you would agree with me that in order to truly make a difference, you have to care. There has to be a care, there has to be a passion and an energy for what you do all day, every day, or else it's a tough place to be. It's different from being bored. Boredom sets in when you know you've got the skills, you know you've got the abilities, you know you've got the mindset, you know you care, you know you're passionate. The problem is that you're not being challenged. Now, that's down to you. You have to take that responsibility on. We all have to ensure that we're challenging ourselves. Of course we do. Yes, your colleagues and the kids and the community need to challenge you, but you need to challenge you. Because if you're not being challenged, you get bored. Now, this started when you were a child. Think back to when you were 7 years of age and your teacher gave you a reading book that you'd read the year before. How did that make you feel? I'll tell you how it made the 7-year-olds feel the first time I made that mistake. Furious. They were absolutely furious with me. Why? Because at the age of 7, you want nothing more than to be moved up a reading level. At the age of 7, you want nothing more than for all of your classmates to see, hear and acknowledge that you've been moved up a reading level. And you want nothing more than that than to go home that night to your mum or your dad or whoever you live with and hand them that book. Maybe that book. To hand them that book and see that look of pride on their face. And if your mum was anything like mine, she'd then wallpaper your book for you. Legend. It's an old school thing. Some of you might not know what we're talking about. The thing that always amazed me about being a primary school teacher, it was those moments I'm sat at my desk doing my work in the queue forms. Now, you've all stood in that queue. That's a row of children with great big smiles on their faces, holding an open book, usually saying something along the lines of, "I'm finished, what's next?" Or, "Can I have help?" Which I think us adults need to sometimes remember that we're still allowed to ask for help as well. So they're usually saying something along the lines of, "I'm finished, what's next?" And this is the thing I love about it. At that age, there's always this want and desire for what's next, this absolute drive to be pushing onwards and upwards, to be succeeding, always, even though when they know that next level of maths or reading is too much. Give me it. Teach me it and I'll show you I can do it. Let me prove to you. Every day as a primary school teacher, my mind was completely and utterly blown by the levels of enthusiasm shown by those young learners towards their own daily learning journey. The journey, of course, that we as adults are all absolutely still on. But there's a problem with being that age, and there's a problem with being at primary school, and that is we stop being that age and we leave primary school. We grow up, we rip through high school, we get a job, we go to college, we go to uni, we get an apprenticeship, whichever route we choose to take nowadays. And through that process of growing up, some of us kind of become society. And what can happen, of course, is that, well, I believe that through this growing up process, there's far too many of us allow a certain thing to fizzle out. For some of us it comes and goes. For some of us it disappears entirely. Some of us hold on to it forever. And the only way I know how to describe it, it's that wee piece of magic. It's that wee piece of magic that we're all born with. It's a natural thing. I see it in my own 2 kids every day. So what do I mean by that wee piece of magic? I'll give you a couple of quick examples. My son Kian, I always remember about a month before he turned 5, it was 4 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and we woke up to the sound of Kian shouting "Dad" as loud as he possibly could. I got the fright of my life, leapt up out my bed, ran for the door, as he came running through the door screaming "Dad," and I stopped him and I said to him, "What is it?" And he looked at me very seriously and said, "I know why they're called eyeballs." Now, this for me is a moment of magic. Let me explain why. 4 o'clock in the morning is irrelevant when you're only 4. He had woken up and had a moment of learning, a moment of discovery, which is cool, but it's not the moment of magic. The moment of magic came next. He shared it. That's it. He shared it. Because that's what you do when you're 4. You learn something new, you share it. You discover something new, you share it. Doesn't matter how big it is, how small it is, how exciting it is, how boring it is, you share it. But because you're 4, you don't just share it. You share it. And you share it from here, with passion, energy, excitement, and it's always wrapped up in that ball of wonder, and it is utterly infectious. It is magic. So why is that relevant to us grown-ups? Well, how many times in the world of work are we encouraged to share best practice, share our knowledge, share our experience, our inspirations, and how many of us are actually doing it? I read a thing recently that suggested that most adults never truly share best practice. They merely exchange little bits of information they hope will be useful. And to those who are sharing, how many of you are sharing from here with passion and energy and excitement, all wrapped up in a ball of wonder? There's how we inspire. There's how we lead. There's how we create movement. There's how we make a difference. There's how we change the world. We don't do it enough. It's that simple. I'll give you one more example of that wee piece of magic. We were having dinner one night. In fact, we do that most nights. And there was broccoli on the plate. Now, I don't like broccoli. My kids love it, which is great. They suck all the juice out at the end. I shove it around until the end. It gives me the bulk. And my son leant over and he picked a bit up and he held it up and he said, "Dad, broccoli's great fun." I'd never heard that sentence before. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It can be stuff." And I thought, you're going to tell me this looks like a tree. Now, I was kind of on the right lines, but because he was 4, he was streets ahead of me. He said, "See this piece here, Dad? Imagine it represented summer." In fact, no, Dad. Autumn. Now, I think you'll all agree that was a wee moment of genius from young Kian. And I remember sitting thinking, isn't it amazing how at that age you can take anything you want, anything, and transform it into anything you want? Now, there's 3 reasons why young kids find this so easy. Let's be honest, they always want things to be more fun, more exciting, more colourful, fresher. Step 2, they believe it's possible. And step 3, they know it's worth the effort. Which is why they'll sit building stuff for days and days and days and bring it all down again, or during summer spend weeks building a fort in the garden and take it all down again. Now let's look at that through the eyes of us grown-ups. Step 1, we have to always want things to be getting better, more fun, more exciting, fresher, more engaging, a little bit scarier, keep us on our toes. That should be the easy bit. And of course, if there's anybody out there thinking, "Oh, I don't always want things to be improving," then you need to leave and do something else. Then there's step 2. We have to believe it's possible. See, there's a problem with this. We're adults. We're grown-ups. We overthink things. I wonder how many of you watching this are overthinkers. I wonder how many of you overthink things so much that you then overthink the fact you're overthinking. I think many of us are overthinkers these days. I think there's an epidemic of overthinking going on. Somebody said to me recently in a school, "I don't think we've thought about our education enough." I think we've thought about it way too much. But if we get through step 2, this idea of believing that it's possible to always make things better, then there's comes step 3. It'll be worth it in the long run. See, you know what that means as an adult when somebody says it'll be worth it in the long run, or it'll be worth the effort. It means that right now it's going to be awful. It's going to be stressful. We're going on a journey. I read a beautiful quote on Twitter. By the way, you can follow me at Twitter. It's Gavin Oates, Oattes, and Tree of Knowledge is tree_of. I saw a beautiful quote on Twitter by a woman called Cynthia Ocelli. I might not get the words exact, but she writes, "For a seed to achieve its greatest expression, firstly, a crack must appear down the front. Its insides will spill out everywhere, and to those who don't understand growth, it will look like complete destruction." It's magic. Welcome to the world of education. Welcome to the world of work. If you think about it, with the seed, if you nurture that seed, nourish it, look after it, protect it, give it what it needs, what it deserves, what are you left with? You're left with something stunning, something beautiful, something fresh, something real, something natural, something full of life. It's the same in our jobs. Yes, with the kids, but you and your job, if we look after it, we nourish it, we give it what it needs, we protect it, and we see it through, what we're left with through these times of change, we're left with something fresh, something full of life and energy, something magic. So really, when I talk about this wee piece of magic, all I talk about really is mindset and attitude. And the beautiful thing about mindset and attitude, it's free. It doesn't cost you a penny. You get up every morning and make a decision. If you woke up this morning thinking you can't be arsed going to work, that's your fault. No one else makes you think like that. It's a choice. And I remember seeing my son make an amazing choice on the first day of primary school. His first day of primary school was a Friday, and then it was just like the visit day, and then he was going to go the next week. But on the Monday of that week, I woke up at 6 o'clock and he stood beside me in his full school uniform. And I'm saying to him, "You don't start until Friday." And he went, "I know." And I said, You're wearing a uniform?" And he said, "I know." I was like, "Why?" He said, "I'm practising." He practised on Tuesday, practised on Wednesday, practised on Thursday. We had to wake him on Friday because he forgot, but that's not the point. He was exhausted from all the practising. But he got up, threw his uniform on, came sprinting into our room. And I said to him, "I've never seen you this excited in all your life." And he said, "Dad, I've never been this excited in all my life." And he put his hands on his hips and he said, "And I've been alive for 5 years." Now that's quite a feat. And he said, "Dad, do you want to know how excited I am?" I was like, "Tell me." And he put his arms out. You might not be able to see it, but he put his arms as far back as he could. And he said, "Dad, I'm this much excited." This much excited happens to be the name of the first chapter in my new book, Shine. Did I tell you I've got a book called Shine out? This much excited. Now, I don't know if you remember being 5, but this much excited? You don't get much more excited than that. And you might not know that as an adult. You're still allowed to be that much excited every single day as you walk into your workplace. If you want to be. And my wife and I had a discussion that moment, and isn't it amazing how all these young people are waking up on that morning so excited, nervous, terrified perhaps, but excited and terrifying and, just so excited and this much excited, buzzing, raring to go. And then we had a discussion about, isn't it amazing how you see some people like that on every step of the journey, but then some people who never really feel like that again, or over time it starts to fizzle out and drift a little bit. It's like a bowl of Rice Krispies. Your job is a bowl of Rice Krispies and you're the milk. What happens if you add milk to Rice Krispies? What does it do? Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it snaps, it crackles and it pops, it whizzes, it fizzes and it bangs. It comes to life. But what happens if you just leave the milk sitting there for a while and don't freshen it up? Do you know what it becomes? Meh. It becomes mush. It becomes That's what can happen in our jobs. It can happen in our jobs if we allow it. So, what about you? How many of you are waking up every single morning this much excited, raring to go and do the thing that you've chosen to do? I hope it's all of you. Now, in case there's one person out there that doesn't think it's actually possible, well, then, okay, I'll pretend you might be right. But what would happen if every single person in your place of work woke up every single morning with the same fire in their belly for the day ahead that they had when they were 4 and 5 years of age? Can you imagine what we would achieve? It would be extraordinary. Even if most of us did it on most of our days, it would still be extraordinary. Even if half of us did it on half of our days, it would be extraordinary. And it is just a choice that's free. So, what happens then if we've got the high challenge and high skill and the right mindset and the right attitude? Well, then of course that's when we experience flow. The sensation of things being almost perfect. It's when we're relaxed, we're happy, we're focused, we're having fun. Now, I've mentioned fun a few times, and of course this tonight is actually a wee introduction to our fun at work experience that we run in schools all over the country, primary and secondary schools here at Tree of Knowledge. And for me, there's two types of fun at work. There's a fun at work that comes from play, and there's a fun at work that comes from doing a really good job and enjoying your job, your actual job, because that is fun. It's a different type of fun, but it's fun. But I want to look at play for a moment and things that you can do potentially in your workplace with your colleagues even. Forget the kids. This is about the staff. It's about you. So for me, we all know the phrase children learn best through play. You've heard it a million times. But how often have you heard the phrase adults learn best through play? That's the one that they keep secret from us. They protect us from that one for some reason. Play is like oxygen. It's all around us, but you never notice it until it's gone. If you think about what play is, it's imagination, it's creativity, it's innovation. Without those three things, there would be no music, no movies, no books, no TV shows, no theatre shows, no humour, no comedy, no dating, no relationships. These things, it would be very difficult to do these things. Think back to when you were 5 and somebody handed you a cardboard box. What's the first thing you did with it? Yep, you got in it, or you put it in your head and you flew it, you drove it, you wore it, you defended it, you transformed it, you ate it. It was the ultimate plaything. When was the last time you played in a cardboard box? Might have been last night. I've absolutely no idea. I can see that Ian Noble is watching. I know that he played in one last night. He does that every night. Don't you, Ian? When was the last time you looked at a cardboard box and then looked at the top of a staircase and pulled this face? And took that box to the top of those stairs, got in that box and slid from top to bottom while shouting the word we. Now I'm guessing for some of us it's been a long time. When was the last time you ran in from work, dived onto your bed, rolled yourself up and shouted, "Quick, come and look at me, I'm a sausage roll"? There's your homework. I dare you to do that at some point this week. You run in from work, dive onto your bed, roll yourself up and shout, "Quick, come and look at me, I'm a sausage roll," and you look at that person's face. Even if you live in alone, someone will come running eventually. And when they run in and say, "What is it?" you say, "I'm a sausage roll," and you look at their face. Especially if you run into the wrong house, that'll freak someone out. This idea of play in the workplace. How often do you play with your colleagues? Like properly play, like in that kind of fun way that you did as a kid with your pals. When was the last time you had a game of Tig? Do it tomorrow morning. You walk into your staff room or to your classroom or wherever it is you're going tomorrow, and you walk up to one of your colleagues and you tig them and run. Just tig them, say, "You're it," and run. They might join in, or they might think, "Oh, how childish," whatever. Have a game of hide and seek. You might be thinking of that colleague who's always playing hide. That's a different game. You're not allowed to play that game. We play hide and seek at Tree of Knowledge. Not often, not every day, but when we do, it's magic. Bunch of people running around, laughing. Somebody once told me we were weird for doing that. I said, "How do you start your day?" "Well, we all come in and make cups of tea and coffee." Woo! Yeah, exciting. We play hide and seek, and see at the end of that 15-20 minutes, everybody's buzzing, the energy's up, everyone's laughing, and that's the feeling you take into your day. You get to come into work every single day and make a choice. Now, hide and seek might not be right for the culture of your place of work, but it's about playing your part and finding what does fit the culture at your work that allows people to have fun at work, to enjoy their job, to have a positive learning working experience on a daily basis. and then the impact that has on the kids. Wow. So are you Mary Poppins or are you Mr. Banks? Where do you sit on those two extremes, or are you somewhere in the middle that my nephew describes as meh? So with that in mind, I would like you to imagine that there was 10 birds sitting on a washing line and 5 decided to fly away. How many are left? Now I know your brain's telling you 5, but you're thinking it's probably not 5. The answer's 10. 10 birds sitting on a washing line, 5 decide to fly away. How many are left? 10. Why 10? Because they only decided they were going to fly away. How many times in life and at work do we decide we're going to do something new, something different, something fun, something exciting, something big, something scary, and we don't? And quite often the reason we don't do it is because we've always done it that way. They say that's the most dangerous thing you can say in a workplace now, but we've always done it this way. Now I've been thinking about this. 10 birds sit on a washing line, 5 decide to fly away. How many are left? I think the answer needs to be 9. Why 9? Because there's always one. Not only is there always one, there needs to be one. In every workplace, in every school, in every classroom, there needs to be one who gets off their backside with a smile on their face and goes and makes great stuff happen in their own life and in the lives of others. Maybe you're that one in your school, and maybe your school needs a wee bit more of that. I've no idea. I've no idea who you are. Well, I probably know some of you. But we get to make that decision every single day of our entire lives. My name is Gavin Oates. We're the Tree of Knowledge. You can find us at treeof.com. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, Gavin Oates, Oattes. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find my Facebook speaker page. Just search for Gavin Oates, Oattes, and please make sure you have a look at our YouTube channels. One channel, singular. Please have a look at our YouTube channel. We've got lots of great stuff on there, not just from me, but from the team. We have the most wonderful team here. I've got my colleague Lindsay with me, who's hiding over there at the moment. Say hello, Lindsay.
Hi.
Yes, hi. And please don't forget my new book, Shine. I know I've mentioned it a few times. You can wear it as a hat if you don't want to read it. Please have a read at it. I know that's back to front. It's a wonderful book. It comes with a warning. It says, please read this book at your own risk. You've been warned. It might just make you feel wonderful. A massive thank you to everybody who spent any time at all listening to me tonight. We had no idea if anybody would show up, so we really appreciate it. So one last thing for all of you. Tig, you're it.